When I returned from Vietnam in 1971, I brought something back with me that wasn't in my duffel bag. Something invisible that weighed more than all my gear combined. For nearly 3 decades, I jolt awake at 2 a.m., heart pounding, sheets soaked with sweat. The memories. They never really left. You'll adjust, they told me. But weeks turned to months, and months to years. I thought I'd never sleep through the night again. My name is Frank Calloway, and after 28 years of struggling with combat-related insomnia, I finally found my way back to peaceful sleep. Not through medication or complicated therapy, but through simple, practical techniques that changed everything. Today, I want to share those techniques with you. I still remember my first night home after Vietnam. The silence was deafening. No choppers overhead, no distant artillery, no whispered alerts from fellow soldiers. Just quiet. And in that quiet, my mind screamed. For those of you battling insomnia, especially my fellow seniors who have carried these burdens for decades, you know it's not just about being tired. It's about how it affects everything: your relationships, your health, your entire quality of life. By day, I was a postal worker, a husband, eventually a father. But at night, I was still that 22-year-old kid in the jungle, hypervigilant, waiting for an attack that never came. My wife would find me sitting in the living room at 3 a.m., staring at nothing. "Come back to bed," she'd say. But how could I explain that sleep felt like surrendering to the enemy? The doctors at the VA were quick with prescriptions. Pills that knocked me out, but left me feeling like I was moving through molasses the next day. I tried self-medicating with alcohol, a common story among vets. It helped me pass out, sure, but that's not the same as real sleep. I wasn't getting any actual rest. By my 50s, the chronic sleep deprivation had taken its toll. High blood pressure, weight gain, memory problems. My doctor didn't mince words. "Frank, if something doesn't change, you're heading for serious trouble." That warning was my wake-up call, ironically enough. I decided that if I'd survived combat, I could survive finding a way to sleep again. The real change began when I reluctantly attended a veterans wellness workshop at our local community center. That's where I met Dr. Matthews, a sleep specialist who'd worked with veterans for over 20 years. Unlike other doctors I'd seen, she didn't immediately reach for her prescription pad. Instead, she asked me something no one had before. "Tell me about your relationship with sleep." My relationship with sleep. I nearly laughed. "Sleep and I got divorced a long time ago," I told her. And it wasn't amicable, but her question made me realize something important. I had begun to see sleep as the enemy, something to fight against rather than surrender to. And in that realization was the beginning of change. Doctors. Matthews explained that for many veterans with insomnia, especially seniors who have struggled for decades, the problem becomes cyclical. We fear not sleeping, which creates anxiety, which makes it harder to sleep, which reinforces the fear. Breaking that cycle isn't about forcing yourself to sleep. It's about changing your relationship with relaxation itself. The goal isn't sleep, she told me. Sleep is just the natural outcome of true relaxation. Focus on learning to relax again, and sleep will follow. It sounded too simple. After nearly 3 decades of sleepless nights, could the answer really be that straightforward? I was skeptical, but I was also desperate. The first technique Dr. Matthews taught me was something called progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR. She explained that many veterans, and others with chronic stress, carry tension in their bodies without even realizing it. We're constantly in a state of physical readiness, muscles tight, jaw clenched, shoulders hunched. PMR is simple but powerful. You systematically tense and then release each muscle group in your body, starting from your toes and working up to your head. The contrast between tension and release helps you recognize what true relaxation feels like. Let me walk you through how I do it. I lie down in bed and take a few deep breaths. Then I start with my feet. I curl my toes tightly, hold for 5 seconds, and then release, paying attention to how different relaxation feels from tension. Then I move to my calves, tightening those muscles, holding and releasing. Thighs next, then buttocks, abdomen, chest, hands, arms, shoulders, neck, and finally face. The first time I tried this, I was shocked to discover how much tension I'd been carrying in my shoulders, and jaw tension I wasn't even aware of. It was like I'd been clenching my entire body for decades, braced for an impact that never came. After just one session of PMR, I felt different. Not cured, not instantly sleepy, but lighter somehow. Like I'd put down a heavy pack I'd been carrying too long. I started practicing PMR every night before bed. Within a week, I noticed I was falling asleep a little faster. Not dramatically, but enough to give me hope. And for someone who'd given up on restful sleep, hope was a powerful thing. The second technique Dr. Matthews introduced me to was a form of breathing that felt strangely familiar. As a soldier, I'd been taught combat breathing, a technique to calm yourself in high-stress situations. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. It was meant to steady your hands and clear your mind when under fire. What I hadn't realized was that this same technique, slightly modified, could be a powerful tool for sleep. In combat, this breathing kept you alert but calm, Dr. Matthews explained. For sleep, we'll modify it to signal to your body that it's safe to let go. The sleep version is what she called 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, then exhale completely through your mouth for 8 seconds. The extended exhale is key. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which controls relaxation. I remember thinking it sounded too simple to work. But as a former soldier, I understood the importance of practice and discipline. So every night, after my progressive muscle relaxation, I would do 5 rounds of 4-7-8 breathing. The effect was remarkable. That extended exhale seemed to release something in me. Sometimes, I wouldn't even make it through all 5 rounds before drifting off. What I've come to understand is that for veterans like me, and really for anyone dealing with chronic stress or insomnia, breathing isn't just about oxygen. It's about sending signals to your brain that you're safe. That hypervigilance isn't needed right now. That it's okay to stand down. For seniors especially, who may have spent decades with disrupted sleep patterns, this simple breathing technique can be transformative. It requires no special equipment, no medication, and can be done anywhere, anytime you feel that familiar tension creeping in. As I worked with these relaxation techniques, Dr. Matthews encouraged me to look at my sleep environment with fresh eyes. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary, she said, not a battleground. This hit home for me. I realized that over the years, I'd come to associate my bedroom with frustration, anxiety, and failed attempts at sleep. Just walking into the room at night would trigger a sense of dread. Creating a sleep sanctuary involved several practical changes. First, I removed the clock from my bedside table. Watching those numbers change while you can't sleep is its own special form of torture. Now I set an alarm on my phone and place it across the room, face down. Second, I adjust the temperature. Research shows that a slightly cool room around 65 degrees promotes better sleep. As we age, our temperature regulation can change, so finding your ideal sleep temperature is important. Third, I considered light and sound. I invested in blackout curtains and a white noise machine that creates a gentle background hum, masking sudden noises that might trigger my hypervigilance. But perhaps the most important change was establishing a clear boundary. The bedroom became a place for sleep and intimacy only. No more late-night TV, no scrolling through news on my tablet, no paying bills in bed. Those activities had been blurring the signal to my brain about what the bedroom was for. For my fellow seniors struggling with insomnia, this boundary setting can be particularly helpful. Many of us spend more time in our bedrooms as we age, especially if mobility becomes an issue. But maintaining that distinction between sleep space and activity space matters tremendously. Within 2 weeks of creating my sleep sanctuary, I noticed another shift. Walking into my bedroom no longer filled me with anxiety. Instead, it began to trigger a Pavlovian response of relaxation, my body recognizing that this space meant rest was coming. Another crucial element in my journey back to restful sleep was establishing a consistent pre-sleep routine. Doctors Matthews explained that humans are creatures of habit, and our bodies respond to consistent cues. Think of it like training for a marathon, she said. You wouldn't just show up on race day without preparation. Sleep requires preparation too. My routine became my nightly mission. It starts 90 minutes before my intended bedtime. First, all screens go off, no exceptions. The blue light from phones, TVs, and computers disrupts melatonin production. But more than that, the content itself keeps our minds engaged when they should be winding down. Next, I take a warm shower. The rise and then fall in body temperature mimics the natural drop that helps trigger sleepiness. After that, I make a cup of chamomile tea and sit in my favorite chair for 20 minutes of reading nothing stimulating, just pleasant fiction or poetry. Then I do a brief gratitude practice, mentally listing 3 things I'm thankful for from the day. This helps shift my mind from problem-solving mode to appreciation mode. Finally, I head to the bedroom, do my progressive muscle relaxation and breathing exercises, and settle in for sleep. The power of this routine isn't in any single element, it's in the consistency. By doing the same sequence night after night, I've trained my body to recognize these activities as signals that sleep is coming. Now, by the time I get to the breathing exercises, my body is already preparing for rest. For seniors dealing with insomnia, this routine becomes even more important. As we age, our internal clocks can become less reliable. A consistent routine helps reinforce those natural rhythms that may have weakened over time. While all these physical techniques were helping, Dr. Matthews also helped me understand that insomnia isn't just a physical problem, it's a mental one too. The thoughts we bring to bed can keep us awake just as effectively as a cup of coffee. For me, nighttime had become a time of rumination, replaying memories from Vietnam, worrying about health issues, even planning the next day. In excessive detail, my mind refused to power down. Doctors Matthews introduced me to a technique called thought reframing. Rather than trying to force myself not to think, I learned to observe my thoughts without engaging with them. When a wartime memory surfaces, Instead of following it down the rabbit hole, I acknowledge it. I'm having a memory about Vietnam right now. Then, I gently redirect my attention to my breathing or to sensations in my body. When worries about the future arise, I tell myself, this is not a productive time to solve problems. I can think about this tomorrow. This isn't about suppressing thoughts or emotions, it's about choosing when to engage with them. Bedtime is simply not the right time. One particularly effective strategy was creating what Dr. Matthews called a worry notebook. Each evening during my routine, I write down any concerns or unfinished business from the day. The physical act of transferring these thoughts to paper helps signal to my brain that it doesn't need to keep circulating them. For my fellow veterans and seniors dealing with long-standing insomnia, this mental component is crucial. Many of us have spent decades with certain thought patterns around sleep. Breaking those patterns takes practice and patience. I found that combining the physical relaxation techniques with this mental reframing created a powerful synergy. As my body learned to relax, my mind found it easier to let go of intrusive thoughts. And as my thoughts became less activating, my body found it easier to relax. One of the most counterintuitive but helpful strategies Dr. Matthews taught me was the 20-minute rule. If I've been in bed for roughly 20 minutes and sleep isn't coming, I get up. This flies in the face of what many of us believe, that we should stay in bed and try harder to sleep. But doctors, Matthews explained that lying in bed awake reinforces the association between bed and wakefulness, exactly what we don't want. Instead, when sleep isn't coming, I get up and move to another room. Under dim lighting, I do something relaxing but slightly boring. I fold laundry, read a dry book, or listen to a slow-paced podcast. Nothing stimulating, nothing screen-based. Only when I start feeling genuinely sleepy do I return to bed. This practice helps break the cycle of frustration that can develop around sleep. It removes the pressure and performance anxiety that many insomnia sufferers feel. Sleep isn't something you can force, the harder you try, the more elusive it becomes. For seniors who may be reluctant to get out of bed due to mobility issues or safety concerns, even sitting up in bed and doing a quiet activity under low light can help. The key is to change the dynamic when sleep isn't happening. I've found that implementing this rule actually reduces how often I need to use it. Knowing that I have a plan for sleepless moments has reduced my anxiety about them, which in turn has made them less frequent. As my nighttime habits improved, Dr. Matthews encouraged me to look at my daytime habits as well. Good sleep at night begins with what you do during the day, she explained. Two factors proved especially important: exposure to natural daylight and physical activity. Morning sunlight helps regulate our circadian rhythms, signaling to our bodies that it's time to be alert and active. I started making a point of spending at least 30 minutes outside each morning, usually taking a walk around my neighborhood. For seniors, especially those who may be less mobile or who live in facilities with limited outdoor access, even sitting by a window in natural light can help. The key is direct exposure to daylight, not filtered through glass if possible. Physical activity also proved crucial. Nothing extreme at my age, I'm not running marathons. But regular, moderate exercise like walking, swimming, or chair yoga helps tire the body naturally and improve sleep quality. I found that timing matters too. Exercise too close to bedtime can be stimulating rather than relaxing. For me, early afternoon activity works best, giving my body time to wind down before sleep. The combination of morning sunlight and regular physical activity has strengthened my body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Instead of fighting against my circadian rhythm, I'm working with it. For my fellow seniors dealing with insomnia, this natural approach can be especially beneficial. As we age, our sleep architecture changes naturally. By reinforcing our circadian rhythms with light and activity, we work with these changes rather than against them. As I implemented these techniques and gradually reclaimed my ability to sleep, something unexpected happened. The benefits extended far beyond just feeling more rested. My blood pressure, which had been stubbornly high for years, began to normalize. The chronic inflammation that had caused joint pain decreased. My memory and concentration improved. Even my digestion got better. But perhaps most surprising were the emotional changes. For decades, I'd carried a certain edginess, a shortness of temper that my family had simply accepted as how Dad is. As I began sleeping better, that edge softened. I found myself more patient, more present, more able to enjoy simple moments without scanning for threats or problems. My relationship with my wife improved dramatically. "It's like I got a new husband," she told our daughter. One who actually smiles. For veterans and others who have struggled with chronic stress and insomnia, this emotional transformation can be profound. Sleep isn't just about rest, it's about healing. It's when our brains process emotions and experiences, when our bodies repair themselves. Without adequate sleep, we're operating in a constant state of deficit. Restoring healthy sleep doesn't just add energy to your life. It creates space for joy, connection, and presence that chronic sleep deprivation steals away. For seniors especially, who may have accepted sleep problems as an inevitable part of aging, these techniques can offer a new lease on life. Better sleep means better days, and at our age, good days are precious. It's been nearly 20 years since I started this journey back to restful sleep. What? 72, I sleep better now than I did at 42. Not perfectly, I still have occasional rough nights, especially when old memories surface or when physical discomfort flares up. But those nights are now the exception rather than the rule. The techniques I've shared today: progressive muscle relaxation, modified combat breathing, creating a sleep sanctuary, establishing a routine, reframing thoughts, following the 20-minute rule, and prioritizing daylight and activity have quite literally changed my life. If you're struggling with insomnia, especially if you've been fighting this battle for years or decades, I want you to know that change is possible. It won't happen overnight. There's no magic bullet. But with consistent practice and patience, you can rebuild your relationship with sleep. For my fellow veterans, I know the unique challenges you face. The hypervigilance that kept us alive in combat zones doesn't serve us well in civilian bedrooms. But we can retrain those responses. We can find peace. And for seniors facing insomnia, whether it's been lifelong or is a more recent development, these natural approaches offer alternatives to the medication carousel that many of us find ourselves on. I'd like to end with something Dr. Matthews told me that first day, something that changed my perspective entirely. She said, "Sleep isn't just the absence of wakefulness. It's an active process of restoration and healing. You don't need to fight for it. You just need to create the conditions that allow it to happen naturally." If you've found value in these techniques, please consider sharing this video with someone who might benefit. Leave a comment below about your own experiences with insomnia and what's worked for you. And if you're interested in learning more about stress-free living, especially for veterans and seniors, subscribe to this channel for weekly videos on relaxation techniques, stress management, and healthy sleep habits. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim restful sleep. I thought I'd never sleep again. But I was wrong. And if change was possible for me after decades of struggle, it's possible for you too. Thank you for listening to my story. Here's to peaceful nights and restored days for all of us.